You're listening to The Trial Lawyer's Handbook, a courtroom preparation podcast series brought to you by Holland & Knight. This series is hosted by litigation attorney Dan Small. Listeners of this series will gain a fresh perspective on how attorneys can address various trial preparation issues and set themselves up for success in and out of the courtroom.
If I asked you to sit in a chair, listen, and say nothing at all for 6 minutes, you'd think, oh, that's like time out punishment for a child. If I said 60 minutes, you'd think, well, that's like a boring lecture in school. If I said 6 hours, you'd think, he's crazy. No way can I do that. No way will I do that. And yet, that is exactly what we ask normal people to do to fulfill one of their most important civic duties, jury service. Sit in a chair in the jury box for 6 hours or more, say nothing, and listen. Then make important decisions on people's finances, future, and freedom. Any good teacher knows that students at any age do not learn best by using only their ears. The same principle applies in the courtroom. At trial, a jury learns best by using as many senses as possible, including ears to listen, eyes to see, and hands to hold. Remember, in elementary school, it wasn't tell, it was show and tell. And it was that combination, show and tell, that made it so interesting, so much fun, and, by the way, so educational. So one of the most important pieces of any trial strategy is developing powerful demonstrative exhibits. How to show it, not just tell it. Demonstratives can leave an impression long after the jury has forgotten much of what was said. This is particularly true in a financial case, where the testimony can often be less than fascinating. We worked on this in the Anzalone case, the money laundering structuring trial that I've been talking about the last couple episodes. What would be the most effective way to help juror number 6 understand that Anzalone was structuring to evade the law with his bank transactions? $100,000 cash, split up into 12 checks, all under $10,000, to avoid the CTR currency transaction reporting requirement. As I prepared to argue the case, I was drawn to the famous quote over 200 years ago from the Scottish writer Sir Walter Scott. "Oh, what a tangled web we weave, when first we practice to deceive." I realized that's what we had here. We had a web of deceit. So how do you show that graphically? We made a huge poster board. On the left was a picture of a bag of cash with $100,000 written on it. Then lines diverged out from the bag to a middle column of images of the 12 cashier's checks. Then went out from there, from those 12 checks, and reconverged back on a single pot of money on the right, with the name of the investment firm and the account in the name of the mayor's mother, where they were all deposited. It really looked like a huge spider's web. We put it up on an easel, and I stood in front of it to give my opening statement. We referred back to it later in the closing argument, saying, the web is obvious, and it worked. It was effective. The jury was clearly focused on it, and it helped to make the scheme much more clear. We as trial lawyers should always remember the importance and the power of good demonstratives. They don't have to be complicated or fancy. In fact, the more complicated and fancy they are, often the less effective they are. They have to be clear and powerful. And by the way, always be aware of demonstratives when you're in the courtroom. In the Anzalone trial, the otherwise very good defense counsel was so focused on giving her opening that she didn't realize that my big, beautiful demonstrative was still up on the easel. I hadn't taken it down, and they neglected to do so. It remained up throughout their opening statement, and I saw the jury looking at our web of deceit at various times during the defense opening. Ears to listen, eyes to see, hands to hold. Show and tell.
Thank you for listening to the Trial Lawyer's Handbook, a courtroom preparation podcast series brought to you by Holland & Knight. For more information on courtroom preparation, please email dan.small@hklaw.com or visit hklaw.com/Daniel-Small.